Hello.
Hello. Welcome to 1882 in Egypt, the English in Egypt in 1882, when war was still elegant. The last vestige of the Victorian era where gentlemen were gentlemen and even on campaign expected to live like gentlemen. And so what you'll see next door is an officer's mess. And you'll notice that there's still silver on the table and that there are fancy plates. And there's all the vestiges of almost an English country house. Now behind me though is the tent of a working officer. But you'll also notice the same kind of campaign furniture, the same kind of tin trunks, other things like a Fortnum and Mason hamper. And Fortnum and Mason they made their bones by sending groceries to British officers overseas, kind of like the Abercrombie and Fitch of England. So what we're portraying here is actually an officer's mess with the accompanying officers, visitors of the mess. In 1882, when the British went more to continue their influence over Egypt because their nationalist tendencies were beginning to show, and there's a guy by the name of Arabi Pasha who was trying to really get the English out. So the English in 1882 sent an expeditionary force to kind of get him out of power, make sure the guy that was favorable to the British stayed in power, and made sure they kept control of the Suez Canal.
Well, thank you very much for the interview, sir, and remember Gordon. And here we are, Rorke's Drift, with mealie boxes and mealie bags. And they are so busy, I just can't talk to them right now. Well, we are at the British camp with a 24th Regiment of Foot. Sir, can you tell me what you're doing here today?
Well, we're making lunch for the troop. We have oxtail is on the menu, and should be breaking for lunch here in just a little bit. We heard there are Zulu in the area, so we've erected ourselves a defensive wall. We don't know when they'll be here, but we heard they are on their way.
All right. So, well, thank you very much, sir, and I hope you might need to put the soup on the fire.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. It's a fresh kill.
All right, thank you. Well, we are at an elegant dining table here. 1882, Sudan? Egypt.
Sudan is 85.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for all you're doing to help promote history.
You're welcome to take a look inside the tent as well.
Well, thank you very much.
The tent is quite interesting.
So we have some gin. Wow. So what ranking officer would have such accommodations, sir?
All the officers. So this is, I'm a major, but this is an individual officer's tent. A lieutenant might have two men in one single tent like this. But this is one officer. They had one general purpose wagon, put all their kit in. Whatever they could fit into it.
Whatever they could fit into it. Well, thank you very much for allowing me to video your camp.
No worries.
Well, I'm here with Mr. Jacob, and Jacob, what are you portraying today?
I am portraying the Anglo-Zulu War. I'm doing 24th Regiment of Foot, 1879. It was a Welsh Guard regiment that went to South Africa around January, and the war ended in September. So the war started because Britain wanted to gain control of ports on the Indian Ocean. Of course, they had to go through South Africa to get to that. And they ran into trouble with the Zulu.
And I see here you have a rack of weapons. They don't look like flintlocks. They don't look like percussion cap rifles. What are they?
These are Martini Henrys. They were the standard issue rifle of the British soldier during this time. They were very, very, very wonderful pieces of equipment, very good rifles. And so basically how it's loaded is it's a breech-loaded rifle.
What's the caliber of this? Is it 45-70?
I believe so, yeah.
Very cool. And how many rounds of ammunition would you carry?
You would carry about 10 sealed paper pouches.
And there we have one. All right. Very cool.
You would carry about 10 pouches in each canister, which were sealed off and papered, which is about 20 in each pouch.
Okay.
And here is the, well, I guess ball bag. It's where you keep loose rounds, about 30, so you can quickly grab them out and push and load your martini.
Very cool. So we have Jacob doing a demonstration of Martini Henry. I'm going to get up close here. So that's the breech. All right.
So this is a snap cap. It's supposed to demonstrate, what that bullet would have looked like a little bit, just the cartridge. So what you would do is you would take one out from your ball bag, you slide it down and push it into here, and you close the breech, and you're basically ready to fire. How to disarm a martini is lower the level, put a few fingers up here, push the trigger, take one finger and just slowly push up, and it will disarm it.
Okay.
And this is to indicate whether it's ready to fire or not. So basically you pull it back. When this is back, basically means it's ready to fire. Once you fire, it goes forward.
All right. And how heavy is this weapon?
I'd say roughly it's maybe 5 pounds, give or take.
Okay.
It does have kind of a kick to it considering the large cartridge. And when you eject the shell, of course, this is just a snap cap. It won't do much, but it shoots out, and when it comes out, a lot of smoke will come out of the
And is
breech
this
here.
still using black powder in this time period?
Yes.
All right. So the Boers were your allies, and I think we have a Boer person here. How about we see what he has to say about the Boers that helped you during the Anglo-Zulu War?
Okay, so I'm the Boer. So this would be my Martini carbine, which would be a little bit shorter than a regular Martini.
And what's a carbine? Because maybe my viewers won't know. Is that a different style of Martini Henry carbine?
Yeah, it's just another name to call the Martini because of the different barrel size.
Because it's shorter then.
Yes, sir.
All right. Continue.
So the Boers were already Dutch settlers in South Africa when the British came in to get to the Indian Ocean to get ports. So we had the common enemy. So British came to the Boers and said, well, why don't we just fight the Zulus together? And the Boers came to agreement and joined the British to fight the Zulus in South Africa. And while we were fighting the British with South Africa after the resolution, and they made it to seduce the Zulus down, then that started the first Boer War because they wanted to push politics on the Boers, and the Boers were like, no, we're not putting up with that. We've been by ourselves so long, we're not going to inherit your politics.
So is that the first Boer War? And what color uniform, Jacob, were you wearing as a British soldier in the first Boer War?
Khaki.
You switched to khaki from red. All right. So why is there a second Boer War?
Because the aggression of the British continued on until the British finally came to a resolution of peace agreement between the Boers and the British.
All right. Well, I'm going to pause here, fellas. So here are the weapons of the Anglo-Zulu War Zulus. And can you take it away, Jacob?
Yeah, so what we have here is the stereotypical cowhide shield and the spear that was carried by the Zulu troops. And just right above it, we have the tossing spear that was made very persistently to be pretty good at tossing, I suppose. So what the Zulu would do is they would grab it by the very end of it where that rope meets that silver shaft, and they would just chuck it as hard as they could.
Okay.
And underneath we have these little neat tassels. They were worn around the wrists and the ankles. I'm not sure what they mean, but all I do know is that they were very decorative. A lot of historians still debate what they mean.
Okay.
And over here, we have a Zulu equivalent to a mace. It looks a lot like a cane, But basically, all you do is when you get close quarters with your enemy, you just whack them with it.
All right, and I gather that's a headdress?
That is a headdress for the Zulu warriors, and each decorative on it, I believe, meant how powerful the warrior they were. I believe.
All right, and then of course we have our breech clout.
Our torn cloth to, cover up. Because the Zulu did not wear a lot of clothing.
Now, I have to ask, in the movie Rorke's Drift, they say the Zulus would run 40 miles a day and then fight a battle. Is that true, or is that movie fiction?
I feel like that's kind of a bit movie fiction. Zulus did have a lot of extreme training, but
they weren't barefooted their whole life, so they built up enough calluses on the bottom of their feet. It was as tough as leather.
Wow.
So they could walk as many miles as they wanted to without even feeling the rocks or anything underneath their feet.
And how about you as a British soldier? How far would you march in a day in Zululand?
It really depending on where you were stationed, because what we're portraying is Rorke's Drift, so we would have just stayed in the supply depot. But let's say if I was at,
they don't try to move too much because they have to have fortifications against the Zulu, because they realize if they got caught out in the open against the Zulu, they would get devastated.
They'd get swarmed.
So they realized they needed to move fortifications slowly while they were taking the land.
The most a soldier usually would march in a day, if they were to, probably easy 3 miles.
3 miles. And I presume you were mounted most often as a Boer, correct?
Yes, and the Boers were used to fill in positions into the units. So wherever we needed to be at, that's where we were asked to go. So we could have been in artillery, we could have been on the front line shooting, we could have been in the back moving materials. So we just kind of fell in where they needed us.
And where are you guys taking me next?
We're going to show you over to the officer's tent.
All right, I'm going to pause the camera here. So what are we doing now, Mr. Jacob?
So right now we are taking a look at how a soldier at that time period would relax while off duty. So here we have Lance Corporal Burgess joining a nice glass or mug of water, and he's sitting in his reclining chair, and he's propped his feet up, and he's relaxing after a long, hard day of work and hard drills, I'm assuming.
And building biscuit box wall.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Jacob, thank you for your talk here on the Anglo-Zulu War. Thank you, sir, for everything you do to promote history. And I'm sorry that you're going to leave the allies of the British and end up becoming their adversary for the next, 15 years or so. So thank you all.
We finally have peace again.
All right, and everyone out in YouTube land, stay safe, be kind, and be courteous, and visit a historic site near you. Well, these fellows have been fantastic to allow me to check out their site, and they are so cool. They let Goober, the traveling bear, stop in and visit, and he says you got to visit Jamestown, Virginia's Jamestown settlement. Thanks, fellas.
Yep. Glad to have you.